It's been a while since we've been able to sit down because you've been all over making changes in our community.
Yeah.
And I'm very proud of that.
I appreciate that.
I'm
No,
very
like
proud.
that means a lot coming from you. Like it do. Like for real. So yeah.
You know I
Yeah.
know what it is, man. So, tell the people where you from.
um so I'm originally from Atlanta. Uh southwest side of Atlanta. Um really mainly like East Point, Southwest Atlanta area, Greenbrier area. I got to Florida because my stepfather is from Panama City, and PK, all day. PK mob, and it really is a mob. Like it's a mob of us. Like it really legitimately is a mob of us that hang, that do this, do this work that we do this creative work we do, organizing work. And like we just found out we PKs, and it's just like, oh, it's crazy. So he wanted to start a church in Panama City, and so that's how I ended up in Panama City. um was there for a little bit, got married in 2015. We moved back from, because when I got married I was living in Birmingham. We moved back from Birmingham to Panama, separated, and that's how I ended up here in Pensacola, because I needed a fresh new start, or some things were gonna happen that can't happen. So that's how I ended up in Pensacola. Um, yeah, man, like that's me. I'm like I said, son of a preacher, but I also feel like I'm a son of the culture. So like I think that's really me in a nutshell. Son of a preacher, but son of the culture.
That's heavy.
Yeah.
What are your areas of work
Um.
and creativity, or what have you, as an influencer?
Mhm.
What are your areas of influencing?
I feel like it should go without saying, and I'm not like really trying to be like arrogant or anything, like, but I'm just keeping it all the way real. I feel like it should go without saying that I'm like one of the nicest MCs like in this region, like period. You know, I got to dust that off. Yeah, I feel like I'm gonna dust that off pretty soon. Um, I dabble in production. I like to say that I like to say that I dabble in production because I feel like I know better producers than me, but I dabble in production. Um, I'm a dope. I I do curating as well. They tell me that's the name for it. But I curate also, and I'm an organizer. Like I'm an organizer at heart, because I've always been that person that I just like helping people. I like helping people, and if it don't benefit the culture, then I don't want no part of it. Like I don't want any part of it. Like if I feel like what you're trying to get me to do, or what you're trying to get me to support don't benefit the culture in any way, or can't make the help the culture evolve, then I don't want no part. I don't want no parts of it.
Is what influenced you
Mm-hmm.
to become an influencer and an organizer? And what influenced you for the hip hop?
Okay. I think for me, both of those journeys start in Atlanta. So the the organizer, activist, influencer, that journey. Um, so my grandmother, who it's still shot in my system right now. My grandma gonna be 100 in October. Yeah, and she's still up and kicking. Still up and kicking too. Like, um, decently active. So when I was living in Atlanta, my grandmother would always take me to church with her on Sundays, and she used to go to West Hunter Street Baptist Church, right there on what is now Ralph David Abernathy Boulevard. And at the time that she was like really active in the church as the Sunday school teacher for the kindergarten class, the pastor of the church at the time was Ralph David Abernathy. And so I was in first grade, and when you live in Atlanta, you know how it go during that week leading into MLK Day. You know, they teach you about Martin Luther King, and then they put all the elementary school kids on the bus. They send them to MLK Center the Friday before MLK Day, and you walk through and you learn about all that good stuff. So I'm in class, and it's around that time, and we're learning about Dr. King, and I'm flipping through this book, and I see this picture, and it's of Dr. King and Pastor Albernathy. And, you know, I read the caption down at the bottom of the picture, and I just yell out in the middle of class. I'm like, yo, I know him. And my teacher come over to me, and she was like, yes, that's Ralph David Abernathy Jr. He was, you know, Dr. King's right-hand man throughout the entire movement. I was like, no, like, I know him. And she was like, what do you mean? I was like, he pastored my grandma in church. And so she sent all the other kids outside for recess and sat me in this classroom for like 3 to 5 minutes and just like explained to me the significance of who my grandmother's pastor was. So it just so happened to be the weekend that I would go over to my dad's house because, you know, mom and dad was divorced, so I would go over his house on the weekends, and that was his mom. And so my grandmother came, she got me for church. Church was over with. I walked up to Pastor Albernathy, and I was like, yeah, so we learned about you in school this week. And from the time I was 5 until he died in 1991, just about every time I would go to church with my grandmother, which it was a lot, but not really a lot. But every time I would go to church with my grandmother, after church was over with, I would go into Pastor Abernathy's office, and we would literally sit and have like these 10, 15-minute conversations about stuff that went on in that movement. And I remember him passing, and my grandma went to the funeral. I went over to my dad's house that weekend after the funeral was over, and she came over to my dad's house. We was all sitting in the room, and she was like, yeah, so his wife, Juanita, came up to me after the funeral was over with, and she was like, she said, you know, Raph used to talk a lot about your grandson, and he thought really highly of your grandson. She was like, I remember like one of the things that he said about your grandson was, I don't know what he gonna do. I don't know what he gonna do, but he gonna do something that's gonna change the course of this world. And I still think about that now. Like, it's something I still think about now, cause it's like man, this Ralph David Abernathy, like,
wow,
you were in the cell with Dr. King when he wrote Letters from a Birmingham. Like, you were sitting right next to him.
right.
And, you know, it's stuff like that put in perspective for me, like, what I do as far as organizing is concerned.